Call the roll, please.
Mr. Greenwood is absent. Mr. Tommy?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ray?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, item number 2.01, Employee Extended Work Plan. Mr. Bradshaw.
This one, Chuck? Doesn't matter, show me one.
I'll sit closer, Mr. Ray.
There you go.
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you. Each year, the Human Resources Department submits the Employee Extended Work Plan for your approval. I've attached the plan, and I'll go over some quick highlights, but just to let you know, we're not requesting any changes from the current plan for the 23-24 school year. Some highlights: an employee has to be eligible to retire through the VRS system. They must be at least 55 years of age. They need to be a full-time employee with at least 10 continuous years with Roanoke County Schools. They must complete the current contracted for this school year. And they need to write a letter to the Human Resources Department or to me by January 31st requesting that they would like to participate in the Employee Extended Work Program. The benefits they get $2,500 towards their annual health premium, and they can work up to 80% of their contract up to 5 years. So basically for a teacher, they would get 32 days of their current daily rate of pay per year. And a 12-month employee, if they were retiring and participate in this plan, they would get 42 days per year that they could participate in this. And sometimes we need to bring days forward from previous years or following years if we need situations where they need to work longer. But we do that on a case-by-case basis. So again, there's no changes to our current plan. We're requesting to keep it the exact same. And I'll be glad to answer questions. And if you're okay, we'd love to have this put on the consent agenda for the board meeting.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, sir.
I got one question. I was looking through it earlier, actually, and something came to mind. I know our nurses, I know we just made them full-time, I believe, 2021.
Correct.
That 10 consecutive year thing with.
We would grandfather that in, because as long as they were employed with us during that time frame, it wasn't their fault they couldn't be.
Okay, great, because, I was thinking that might put us in a situation, I don't know how many nurses we have that plan to retire over the next, 10 years, but we wound up in a situation where that's such a specialty.
It is, and honestly, we do everything we can to try to work with our employees. So if there's a break like that, or something of no fault of their own, like a situation changed where they had to, for the school board might have changed their employment status for some reason, then we would look at that.
So
But
we
yeah,
would-
if they've been with us for 10 consecutive years, we do everything we can to try to make them fit into that.
Okay, great.
One question.
Yes, Mr. Ray.
How many percentage do you usually have take that each year?
I would say it's probably somewhere between 60% or so. We currently, and I pulled these stats just in case you all would ask the question, we currently have 167 total employees in the program right now, retirees. So I think that's a pretty good number, and we use those as substitutes. And I mean, the knowledge they bring back to our classrooms and to educate our kids, or we use them. Our maintenance employees can participate in this program, or warehouse, things like that. We have a lot of our warehouse that are doing that, and just the knowledge they bring. It's a great program that Roanoke County offers. So I'd like to see it continue if you all would approve it for next school year.
That's a pretty good percentage.
Is there a reason that we're limited to 80% of, is that a state regulation, the
It's a
32
VRS
days?
requirement. Yeah, they can't work full-time. So it's 80% of their current contract is what you can use for VRS to work forward to use in it, yes.
32 days is so short of full-time. That is the maximum allowed.
They can work, I'll explain. We can actually work them more than those 32 days if the need is for the system. So if it benefits Roanoke County Schools, we've worked some employees 100 days their first year, and they still count for the 5 years worth of work. But they can't work all of their days in 1 year, because if they do, then it looks like it's full-time status, and VRS then will kick them out of their retirement. So they can't do both at the same time. So this protects our employees as well, that allows them to work these days and still maintain their retirement status.
Once they meet that 180 days, or 150, whatever, how many days?
160 days for a teacher, correct?
Does their benefit of the $2,500 toward their health insurance, does that continue for the 5 years?
It does, correct. So even if we need to use them to work more days, front load their days, if you will, so say we do this over a 2-year period or a 3-year period, they work all those days, they still get that $2,500 credit benefit for 5 years, correct. And then last year you approved for us, we actually, if they use their days, our retirees, we're paying them at the 180 a day rate, like a long-term sub would make. Because, again, they're bringing so much expertise back to the classroom, they deserve, I feel like they deserve it, and thankfully you all did too, that they deserve more for, and Dr. Nicey, I think, was one that kind of spearheaded this, to get them to that 180 a day rate if they're not participating or if they've used all their EWIP days.
And did we see because of COVID, people having to use that? I mean, I know one particular situation that was brought to my
We had some.
attention, but
Yes, we had a few. Some like working their days more at first, like they like try to get in 60, 70 days if they can in the first year. Then the second year, they try to finish it because some are just trying to get the benefits of, getting their health insurance is really what they're looking for. But it is a benefit to our system to be able to have these employees come back and work these days.
no question. Especially with that knowledge and expertise.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we use them as long-term subs as well sometimes. Let's say we have a math teacher that's going on maternity leave. A lot of times we'll try to use our retiree UWIP employees to do that because, again, they have that knowledge, they understand the classroom, and they understand what it takes to do that long-term position. So, yes.
This is not so important now, but am I correct in saying that, thinking ahead, it doesn't really matter if they're under the Plan 1, Plan 2, or Plan 3, or the hybrid in terms of?
You are correct. It does not matter as far as that goes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw.
Thank you.
Item number 2.02, 2022-23 VDOE Security Equipment Grant. Mr. Terry. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since 2013, the state of Virginia has provided school districts with the opportunity to apply for the School Security Equipment Grant. This competitive grant gives a maximum of $250,000 for the purchase of building security systems. Some of our past awards were for security cameras and intercom systems. This year, the Virginia Department of Education has awarded Roanoke County Public Schools the maximum award of $250,000 from the 2022-2023 School Security Grant Program. These funds are approved for the purchase and installation of two-way radio system amplifiers to boost the radio signals for the following locations: Burlington Elementary, Herman L. Horn Elementary, and Northside High School. The total cost of the equipment and installation is $315,000. A local match of $62,500 is required, which is 25% of the grant award. An additional $2,500 is needed to meet the total estimated cost of the project. Staff recommends the acceptance of the VDOE Security Equipment Grant for a total project cost of $315,000, of which $250,000 will be receipted from the VDOE and allocated from the minor capital grant reserves, and $65,000 will be spent from local funds and will be appropriated from minor capital reserves. Once approved, a request will be made to the Board of Supervisors to increase the minor capital project fund in the amount of $250,000 to accommodate this increase in grant funding. So this is good news we bring from the VDOE giving us money for school safety.
And how did we identify those 3 schools as the most needy?
We worked with Roanoke County and walked actually every building to see which buildings needed amplified. The signals outside of the buildings are usually pretty good, and the inside, as you can imagine with the different materials in the buildings, sometimes needs amplified or boosted. So this will give us an amplifier for all the buildings that Roanoke County recommended and our surveys actually found out. There are still a couple of buildings without them, but those have line of sights to their towers now. So like Glenver Elementary, Mount Pleasant, Mountain View have good coverage already.
You probably already said this, but the VDAs amplify what kind of signals?
They amplify the radio, the two-way radios that Roanoke County uses, which we've moved to that system as well. So that'll increase our availability for the school staff to have direct access to the Roanoke County Dispatch Center. And we know that if you push the orange button on top, and Mr. Hudson will know this as well, it goes directly to the dispatch center, so they get instant feedback from the emergency responders.
Any questions? Mr. Ray?
Are these all digital now?
These are all digital 800 megahertz radios, and they, one of the most important things is all of these signals, all the transmissions are encrypted. So the traditional way of having the old scanners to listen to the traffic that's going on would not work anymore. You have to have the encryption key for that. So it's way more secure because of that. And of course, the added benefit of having the orange emergency button greatly increases the speed of response.
And if someone hits it accidentally?
If somebody hits it accidentally, then you stay on the radio and talk to the dispatch center to say this was an accident, and they'll talk you through how to clear the button. And that's happened a couple of times to our schools.
Any other questions? And would this be a consent agenda item on,
It'd be great if it could be a consent agenda.
And then it'll have to go to the school board.
the
They'll
Board
have
of
to do-
Supervisors, you mean?
Well, I mean, Board of Supervisors, they'll have to do 2 readings, I guess.
Correct.
Correct? Unless they do a 3/4 vote. In one session.
But that gives us time to work on quotes and things
Okay.
for the systems.
It's not like we're gonna have it tomorrow.
No, I think the timeline will work perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 2.03, the surplus request for retired technology equipment.
Each year, we request the retirement of aging technology equipment. This year, we have approximately 3,000 devices that consist of laptops, desktops, monitors, printers, mobile devices, and computer accessories. This equipment was previously assigned to administrators, students, and teachers. As part of the surplus process, the state contract vendor Powerhouse Recycling will ensure proper data removal and allow for environmentally friendly destruction of all equipment. They will also pay us the remaining residual value of the surplus equipment. All surplus proceeds have been included in the FY23 budget as a funding source for the technology replacement plan. Staff recommends to surplus the approximately 3,000 retired technology devices and prepare them for sale to the state contract vendor Powerhouse Recycling. Powerhouse will provide us with a proof of destruction document for all equipment, and this includes erasing all data using the Department of Defense standards. Again, this would be great if it could go to the consent agenda.
And when will you be replacing them?
The replacement would be purchasing in May for
May.
new equipment.
Any questions?
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
So you said they will also pay us. So what are you expecting?
Somewhere around $39,000 for, it's mostly teacher laptops and really old iPads that we have.
It's a nice chunk.
$130 per unit, I guess.
It depends on the model. Some of them are in the $70 or $80 a unit, and then some are, some have better equipment that they can take processors out of and other parts. So it ranges, but $65 maybe on the low end, and then $150 or so for some of the higher.
All right. Any other questions? Okay to put that on consent for next Thursday? Thank you, Mr. Terry. Item 2.04, update on RFPs for tutoring services. Mr. Ben Williams.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
We have been in discussions previously about tutoring and various alternative tutoring options because of shortages that we have in terms of finding adequate tutors, but also because we have additional tutoring needs related to COVID, students being out, et cetera. And so we went ahead and did 2 RFPs for supplemental online tutoring. The 2 are slightly different Wanted to go through the two different types we were looking at. One is for high dosage tutoring. Research says that high dosage tutoring essentially has the best effect size with regard to being able to move students that are well behind grade level to grade level proficiency over a long period of time. So basically what that's dealing with is dealing with unfinished learning for students significantly behind grade level who really need intensive, often one-on-one instruction that is more than you can get in the classroom. And so for that RFP, by the way, for both of these, we had lots and lots of vendors. For that RFP, we awarded it to BrainFuse, a company that's been around long before COVID, which was one of the things that we were really looking for. Somebody that's not going to go away after this because there's a lot of fly-by-nights out there. But basically, what we're looking for there is to use this in grades probably 2 through 8, definitely elementary and middle, primarily focused on our elementary schools probably first, middle school as a second. And what we would do is we are trying to do this in tutoring, high dosage tutoring with our own people first. And we would use this as sort of a fill in the gaps sort of situation where we have holes, we have too many needs and not enough people, we would use this to fill in those gaps. Our first priority would probably be Burlington Elementary because that's a school that we've identified right now that has needs beyond the people that we can provide. So that would definitely be a priority. The biggest challenge that goes along with the high dosage tutoring is really two things. It's finding the time to do it and also having supervision. Because even though we're using tutors that are available online, we also have to have supervision for those students while they're doing the online tutoring and a place to have that. So that's, what for Burlington, for example, we'll probably tap into the time that they use for Boys and Girls Club right after school because so many of our identified students take advantage of that. So it's sort of I don't want to say captive audience, but that's essentially what it is. And what we're identifying there is purchasing roughly $500,000 in as an initial allotment. That buys us essentially hours that we can use throughout the division as needed. And roughly 1,900 hours. That's quite a few hours of tutoring out there.
And do you mind repeating that? Was there a cost you just said, 500,000?
500,000 for roughly 19,000 hours.
1,900 or 19,000?
19,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours. And those hours, like I said, can be divvied out over the course of over this year, but also if we have leftover hours, we can carry those into the following year. So we don't have to worry about, if for some reason we don't use them all. So we're excited about the high dosage tutoring as an additional option. The other type of tutoring we haven't talked about in board meetings.
I'm sorry, one
Yes.
more question just to clarify before we go into that. You mentioned Burlington being, a high need priority, but just to clarify, this would be for all the elementary schools?
It would be absolutely, we would anticipate that there would be students in all the elementary schools, potentially all the middle schools also that would take, that would take advantage of this. And that's going to be very fluid. For example, we had a situation at Condiff where our remedial teacher left. And there's a hole between the time that teacher left and where the new person is going to come in. And this could potentially, help bridge that gap, those sort of situations. So there's all sorts of sort of specific scenarios where it would plug in around the county.
Before you go
Sure.
to the next one, can I ask you a couple more questions about BrainFuse? So just to clarify, did you say, is it just grades 2 through 8? Are we limited to only 2 through 8?
We're not limited to any grade levels. Because it's an online program, And because our primary school students have really been with us, it's more of a post-COVID situation, it's more likely that we would get sort of the bang for our buck with those grade levels. I think on an online environment sort of is better suited to those grades. If we need to use it in high school, we could, but I think the high schools are a lot more excited about this second option that
Okay.
we're going to go over. So,
So you're not limited.
not limited at all. In
But you
fact,
have
we're
the
happy to
option.
use it if needed.
Yeah, that's,
And there are some situations at the high school where I could envision us doing that. For example, we have situations where we'll get an L student, for example, is transferred from out of the country, and by the time we get the English up, there's a long gap. There's a pretty significant gap that we have to bridge in terms of content, where that could be very helpful. So certainly but those are going to be more individual. I would see elementary a little more programmatic, where, larger numbers of students in each building, where middle and high would probably be more individual situations.
one more question
Sure.
before we go on to the next one. With BrainFuse, are you able to record the sessions?
Absolutely.
So the children can watch them again?
All the sessions are recorded. In addition to that, all of the folks that they use have a pretty significant vetting process. Only a very, very small amount of the people who apply are actually allowed to move on to be tutors through this. They're one of the bigger companies that's out there, so a little more reputable than some of the smaller ones we looked at. The other thing is that they're also all background checked, so we're also monitoring for that. But having the sessions recorded is also sort of a secondary, check there as well. So we feel good about safety. We feel good about the quality of the people that'll be doing it. Most of the people that are going to be doing it are either former or retired teachers.
So how does this work? I mean, how does this look? Like you were mentioning Burlington. So would a group of kids that are struggling be taken to a classroom setting?
So, in all likelihood, it would probably be a small number of kids, but, let's say 3 or 4 students at a time, would be taken to a classroom setting, or in an open classroom or an after-school, classroom. And the school would have a point person, and that point person would identify for every student, what are the learning goals need? Where are the holes that need to be filled? They've already contacted the company. The company already knows what those are. The company would begin the process by pre-testing the student to get their base level, and then work from there through the content with the student, checking for understanding all through the way, and it would be video based, so you'd be able to see the person on the other side.
But it is live.
It is live. It's video based. And it would be a situation where they would have like an online whiteboard. They've got some really cool interactive pieces that they can use, and this two-way interactive. And so, yes, it is live, and so it's not like a plug-and-play sort of situation. It's not like, we're going to stick you behind a, sort of a recorded video of this and hope you get it. It's very much interactive. Very much driven by relationships. And they actually do try to have the same person work with each student so that they build that relationship. It's really important when you're doing remediation to be able to kind of look them in the eye, have that eye contact, have that, there can't be passivity in it. It's got to be a very active learning situation. So that's what they try to build, and they've got a pretty good body of research that proves that it's possible and they can deliver.
That's what I was going to ask. So have you researched to see or reached out to other districts to see, have the grades of the kids steadily increasing? Is it a high success rate?
It is, as long as they maintain fidelity. Fidelity is the key with the model. If you do it every once in a while, you're not going to get much benefit at all. If you do it once a week, you're not going to get much benefit at all. But the research they have and the research overall on high-dosage tutoring basically says that, that if you keep the consistent, 3 times a week minimum, going, have very few missing sessions, then you're going to make progress. And in fact, you're going to make progress at a higher rate compared to other types of tutoring you could do, which is sort of the key.
So do you think the $500,000 price, do you think that that will serve us better than anything that we can do with current employees to be able to, plan something that they could do face-to-face?
Okay, so that's a good question. With 500,000, for example, if we were to hire people for that, first off, we're having trouble hiring for our current remedial positions. Pretty significant challenges hiring for our permanent remedial positions, and we've had some that went unfilled for a while. So if we were to use that money to hire permanent positions, especially mid-year, one, you probably wouldn't be getting your best people, and two, you may not get people at all. And it's only a handful of positions, but those handful of positions would have to be farmed out all across the division, across, 16 elementary schools, 5 middle schools, maybe 5 high schools, and the ability for them to understand the content across all of those levels would be prohibitive. So this way, you can have, dozens and dozens of people hitting different levels of content all at the same time. So it probably is the most efficient way to do it on a small targeted scale.
Okay, and then the one last question, I guess the techniques that they would use to teach the children, is it going to mirror what we're teaching in the classroom now?
They have to go by the Virginia standards. So that was part of our RFP process, and there was definitely a comfort level on that, and so that is certainly something that they will be doing, and that's also one of the reasons why we have a point person at each school to ensure that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just follow up with one thing that Mr. Hudson was asked, just to clarify I know we all get it, I think, in the room, but just for anybody else listening, your question about in-person versus this, I think it's not a matter of this or this, it's really, this is designed to be an and, because we definitely are going to continue our in-person, we think in-person's best, you've got funds to do that, this would be more of a supplement.
90% of our work would likely be in person during the given year.
I was looking at it from a standpoint of, are people interested in overtime? And I don't know what that would equate to, doing the math and what the need is, but looking at who we have, are they interested in making extra money, working after school kind of thing?
Ones that are, anybody who's interested in extra money with tutoring in the division are pretty much, the door's open for them at the schools. The schools all already have pots of money designated for that. We've also told those schools, if you have people, I'd rather have a human do it than, well, not a human do it, we're gonna have a human do it this way, but I'd rather have a person live do it than a person online do it, an in-person situation. So we have the money to pay for in-person first. And so we're gonna default to in-person first and use this in situations where we're having trouble getting the people.
So for the hours, do you think that 19,000 hours, do you think that that's a reasonable number?
I do. We're looking at, and again, it depends on how long each student's in it, but we're looking at between probably 350 to 500 users there. And that's about what we would anticipate. I anticipate that we may have some hours that could go beyond this school year. And how many that is, it's really hard to tell right now because this is fluid. I won't be able to say for sure, but there are additional opportunities potentially for us to add to those hours if it's not enough.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
if it's
that's what
too much, if we can carry over to next school year. If it's not enough, we've got federal funds that we could potentially move around and tap into to add to it.
Okay.
So we're flexible there.
Yeah, so can I just add one thing that you said that I thought was important? It's live, it's face-to-face, it's just not in person. So the evolution of teaching has changed fortunately or unfortunately for some, but you can actually take kids from all over and put them together and then have somebody face-to-face help them out when you can't find those resources. So the increased, I would suspect, and the data's out there for the kids who are really struggling to have improved attendance because of that repetition of that
It is.
high-dosage tutoring. I mean, that's data that I think is very impressive.
When folks feel successful in school, they're more likely to want to come to school.
Exactly, yeah. And so I don't know much about this company, but I'm assuming there's data-driven assessments continually throughout the process.
There are.
Okay.
Mr. Ray, you had a question?
Yes. Do they, you talked about where Virginia standards and where they would be coming, do they look at, if you're in Virginia, do they look for a Virginia tutor first?
Yes, yes. And so there's a huge number of metrics that essentially they have data on their own tutors, and they have thousands of tutors, where you're right, that they tap into Virginia tutors first. Secondly would be tutors that have experience working with Virginia students, and so on and so forth. So there's a matching system within their, on their back end that helps ensure they get the best person.
And this could be one-on-one or group?
It could be both, but I would assume that most of the situations would be one-on-one. There definitely wouldn't be more than one-on-three. Once you go beyond one-on-three, you really need additional tutors to be involved. And even if there was one-on-three, those three people would need to be working on the exact same skill. So the three students would need to be working on the exact same skill. So it's going to be a little fluid there too. Could be doubles, could be triples, but I would say the bulk of the time it's going to be one-on-one.
And success rate?
Again, I'd have to go back to the research they have, which I don't have in front of me. But the vast, basically, if you do this with Fidelity, you're going to move. The amount you move is variable from student to student to student, but it's comparable or higher than you would expect, whether from face to face. It's pretty impressive.
For in person.
Yes, for in person. You're right.
Well, I definitely think that this is something that you should keep a close eye on to make sure that we're using the funds where they need to go. I mean, it's a lot of money, and I'm okay with that when it comes to this. I just want to make sure that we are putting it in the right place and we're getting the best bang for our buck.
And Susan will talk about the funding sources for this, but this is from
This is
federal
ESSER.
unfinished learning.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure we're giving them what they need. I don't care about the
Absolutely.
cost so much as, does it work, does it not work? And if it doesn't work, we need to shift and get these kids where they need to be, because I
Yeah,
don't want
and
them lagging.
I'm going to have a dashboard on my end that's going to be able to track that for both of these systems. And essentially, if it's not working, we're going to end it. I mean, it's just.
Right, shift
there's
strategies,
yeah,
move to
we'll-
something
We'll
different.
shift to something else in a heartbeat, because I cannot waste kids' time. I have real problems with that. So,
I'd just like to add, I mean, I'm glad that we're headed in this direction. I have to be honest, though, it took a long time for me. This should have been done sooner. I wish we could have done sooner. I know there's a process with these RFPs, but I'm disappointed at how long it took. I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad that it's going to happen, so.
How does the $26 an hour compare to what we currently pay? I mean, if you've got 19,000
we're paying
hours.
25 an hour right now.
Okay.
So it's pretty comparable. And I was actually surprised that they're able to do it for that rate. Most of the companies can't.
Very good.
All right,
And it was all over the place in terms of the amounts that were out there.
Mr. Ray?
if you get into a situation, a contract, I guess, with them, and you sign, you've got 119, or 19,000 hours, and you say, it's not working, what is your out clause?
We're going to be bound to the initial contract. So in terms of coming out from that, we haven't, I say we're bound. We haven't finalized the contract, so that's something there's still going to be some negotiation there. The award has been given, but the contract hasn't been signed yet. It hasn't been finalized.
Well, I mean, I think to that end, if they don't do what they promised to do, you can't
Mhm.
necessarily guarantee an outcome, but
Right.
if they don't either provide the tutors and so forth, then.
Or, yeah, Yeah, we can certainly write language into the contract that can give us
Yeah, give you an out.
yeah.
Okay.
County purchasing is working on that. That's not on
Oh,
the
okay.
school side. We're working with them. Ready for the next part?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the next part is something we haven't talked about, but is happening in various places, a lot of big divisions all over the country, and I'm particularly interested in this piece. Here's what I want you to picture, and many of you have had this with your own children. You have a student, it's 10 o'clock at night, they're doing their homework, and as they're doing their homework, they get to a math problem and they're stuck. They are stuck, and it's due the next day and potentially graded, and they're starting to get upset. They know they're going to get a bad grade. They might be getting a little weepy. They're stressing the household. Dad, Mom, why can't you answer this for me? Well, that math is too high for me now, and so they're stuck. It's 10 o'clock at night. There's nobody to help. Maybe their friends aren't available. Who knows? What this program is just-in-time tutoring. Essentially, what would happen is they would log in to a program they'd have on their school laptop. Tutor.com was who's used. They've been around for a very long time, pretty respected in this area. Probably the trendsetter and one of the forerunners in this area. And essentially, what would happen is within about 30 seconds, they would be connected to a live tutor who would 24/7. If it's 3 o'clock in the morning, they'll have somebody. And they would be connected to a live tutor who could get them unstuck and allow them to figure out the solution. Now, this program, they don't tell you the answers. They will not tell you the answers. They tell you how to arrive at the answers. So it is tutoring. It's just, that's why we call it just-in-time tutoring. It's the problem is now, and I need somebody to get me unstuck and tell me why I'm making this error. And so it's the tutoring when when it happens. And I could definitely see, I know this is going to be really popular with high school. It's going to be really popular in areas like physics, in potentially in languages. So that's sort of the core is this. And think of the stress, and this is going to be available to every single student in middle and high school. The stress that we can alleviate from parents is pretty immense, and the stress from kids too, which, especially, really across the range. We have a lot of, we have folks who want to do their best, and they don't always have the support. And that support isn't equal from family to family too. This is a floor leveler. This is a real game changer for our economically disadvantaged students who maybe don't have parents that can support them with some of this stuff, or don't have somebody around to tap into whereas somebody else might. Or if there's situations where they're not significantly behind grade level, but because of COVID, maybe they've got a learning gap or two that otherwise they wouldn't have, this can fill in that learning gap and help them move forward. And so it's going to be basically for all subjects. The other things that they can do, it also does paper proofreading. Think of how many times you might proofread your children's papers, but not every parent can do that. Not every parent is equipped to do that. Not every parent is there. They might be working nights or so on and so forth. And within 12 hours, they'll proofread your paper and get it back to you. And then the other piece, and as a parent that spent a lot of money on this for my first kid, they have Princeton Review SAT prep courses and prep materials, those big fat books. They have all of that online for the students that are preparing for their SAT. I would consider that far better than the Khan Academy stuff that goes out now. In fact, some of the best courses you can get are the online courses offered through Princeton Review. So that's a big boost to college-bound students as well. So this helps the whole gamut, from the student that's struggling and is doing independent work and not able to get their independent work done, to the student that's trying to get ready for college and really trying to to get ready for an SAT or an ACT. All of those things are going to be there. And like I said, I think that's something that Mr. Greenway had mentioned quite a bit about what can we do for students that don't have the same means as, as other students. And this is a big step in that direction. So, so anyway, what that is basically a recurring yearly cost of roughly $188,000. We would do this in 6 through 12 because, one, elementary students don't have a lot of take-home homework. Two, they don't take home their laptops, so it wouldn't be very successful in that situation. But mainly middle and high. And we will again look at this program and say, is the usership there? So once we do this for about a year, we'll say, okay, well, let's look at who's using the program. Have we pushed it enough? Are parents aware? And if they are and they're not using it, we back off and don't use it anymore. If it's popular and folks are happy with it, we're getting good results, then we explore avenues once federal funds run out for local money to move forward. So that's the just-in-time.
Ms. Fashani?
You knew I was going to have a question.
I did.
So, user recorded, are these
It is as
recorded?
well.
Thought so. And logging of the hours, will we know?
There's an
Which students-
administrator dashboard on
Dashboard.
that, so I know every time a kid uses it, what subject they did it in, how long the session was, and I'll be able to cumulatively produce all of that for you.
And is a student allotted to every phone call only so many minutes of
No.
usage?
No,
So-
unlimited use.
And I completely agree with you in terms of leveling the playing field for financial resources. Not every parent can afford a private tutor, and some really need them. And this makes a huge difference.
I mean, really, I think for $188 a year, it's a bargain.
Yeah,
Unlimited access for all our middle and high school students?
Yes.
yeah.
I like it because I've been at a point where I'm sitting there looking at something, trying to get unstuck, as you put it, on some stuff before as a
In
parent.
elementary school?
Hey, don't tell everybody. Some of the math is not easy. I'm gonna bring you some homework. Mike. How good you are.
So,
like it.
in terms of getting the message out to the parents, I think that's the most important thing, especially because when are we starting that program if we start it?
As soon as we can get the contract signed and get the initial program put on the laptops, which shouldn't take long, I'm hoping early second semester. And then I tap into my buddy Chuck, who we've already talked, and we're going to get notice out to parents through various means. And Chuck's excited about that. He's pumped.
And you said that would be recorded. So then I'm assuming, but you have to ask questions so people can hear it, background checks, same thing on the.
Really, the process is very similar in terms of vetting of the tutors as the other system. Background checks, mainly former teachers and retired teachers, but they also have to do, in both of these programs, the tutors have to actually take tests on their content knowledge as well as their ability to tutor. So their content knowledge checked, and then they have to basically do like mock tutoring sessions as part of the interview process.
Okay.
Have we been able to test this product at all? I mean, does anybody get up at 2:30 in the morning and test this product?
Well,
think
I'll
you
tell you,
should.
I'll tell you why I
You
know
should.
that they can promise that. Because one of their biggest contracts, and has been for many years, is the Department of Defense schools. The Department of Defense schools are all over the world. And so this program serves all the Department of Defense schools and has for a very long time. So they have a track record of, being able to work around the globe, but all from a single place. But at both of these as well, one of the requirements is that they be US-based. These are US-based tutors, language won't be an issue, et cetera.
Yeah, that would be my other concern, having, different language barriers or accent barriers.
Yep, these are all US-based tutors.
Outstanding.
Yeah, and how many hours do you anticipate we'll use of that?
I'll be honest with you, I hope they use it a ton. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's something we're gonna have to track, but.
What's the under/over on it?
We're actually, I'll be honest with you, I'm curious myself how often it's
Yeah.
going to be used. But if we were to get, I would think in terms of percentages. If we're getting 15, 20% of our students logging in in a semester, I'd be pretty happy with that. I'd like to see it even higher, but in terms of hours, I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of hours per student necessarily. I have a feeling we're going to end up with power users and occasional users. The other piece is we can, and this is a growing part of their business, we can actually have teachers work with this in their classroom and say, okay, well, you're writing this paper for me. Everybody submit your paper to tutor.com, and they'll proofread your paper for you. That way your paper's going to come in cleaner. So you can actually do it, whole classroom if you wanted to. Of course, there's pros and cons to that, but some divisions use it that way. So a lot of the larger divisions with more means have really been tapping into this sort of thing and already have this available. This will be one of the first programs in Southwest Virginia where we're doing this.
And Brain Fuse, anybody else?
Really large, no, there's a lot of large divisions across the country. Charlotte Mecklenburg, I know, is a big one. I can get a list for
That would be
you.
great.
Yeah.
While I don't doubt Chuck's ability to get the word out on this, I hope it's not something we pull the plug on quickly, because, I mean, it sounds like it really could be. It may take a year or two for students to get comfortable using it and parents to understand it, but it's something that.
And frequent reminders, right? Don't
we
just
can
announce it
roll over.
once, but
Yes, can't be
Right.
at one time, right?
Over,
I don't think it'll take a year or two.
No,
I
this
think
is a
it'll take,
recurring yearly
like,
contract
a month or
here.
two.
or just a year, so
Seriously.
Yeah, so it's not based on a number of hours. It's literally unlimited.
how do you anticipate a rollout?
What I think we will probably have is we're definitely going to have a website presence. I hope to have a flyer that goes out to all the parents, and we know how flyers go, especially with our older kids. So we'll likely do a call as well. That call might refer to the site. The other thing is I'd like to see some teachers using it so that they can start to use it in the classroom. Because if they can use it at least once in the classroom to see how it works and have that demonstrated, they're going to be a lot more likely to use it independently. They're going to be less likely to just do it independently without ever feeling it ahead of time. So if we could walk them through it in the schools, that would be the best way to handle it.
So, 3 times 8, you take 3 cookies and put 8 dots in each cookie.
I know where you park.
You gotta, no, for Brent, you gotta cut up the pizza. Cut up the
I just
pizza.
say,
Can you,
I had to learn
fractions?
the times tables and memorize them, so.
That was when they had dirt floors. We
No, it was
upgraded
one
since
room.
then.
It was one room.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
All grades in the same one.
Item 2.05, COVID-19 funding summary update. Ms. Peterson.
you might want to tell Ms. Peterson that
She
at
has
4:30.
12 minutes.
I don't think I can speak in 12 minutes.
Okay, good.
Oh. That's why they give them those.
Good. Right, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm about to fall off the chair. That would not be good. So I'm here to share with you our required update for the American Rescue Plan Act and kind of where we stand with all of our grants right now. This came about because the governor announced in October about the NAEP scores being lower, and he announced that he had a challenge to all of the school divisions to spend their remaining funds for unfinished learning, which is a lot of what we were just hearing about from Mr. Williams. So they actually sent out a superintendent's memo, which is attached to board docs. And that was published November 4th, and we got some additional information later in the month about it. But what the Virginia Department of Education is requiring us to do is to reopen. So if you remember, when we first got the COVID money, we had to obtain stakeholder input, create a spending plan, and put it on the website. And we did all of that. So now the VDOE is asking us to reopen the stakeholder input to get additional comments on what's left to be spent out of all of the grants. We plan to have several meetings over the next a week and a half. I will be publishing a survey on the finance website in the next day or so, along with a quick video, which will be similar to what I'm going over with you now. We will have a public hearing on December 15th, which is probably advertised in the Roanoke Times, I think last Sunday and next Sunday. Anything that is said during the public hearing obviously will not be incorporated same day, since I'll be presenting the plan to you. However, we will be able to incorporate any required changes to the plan subsequent and re-update the plan as needed. And then we'll publish the spending plan on our website. So I think the most important thing to start off with is kind of take a step back and remind everyone of kind of how much money we're talking about and what has happened. So when the pandemic hit, the federal government issued 3 different tranches of funds. They issued the CARES Act, the SRSA Act, and the ARPA Act. I'm using short terms because it's a lot easier than the names that are this long. If you look up at the screen on our wheel, the inside circle of the wheel is the total act, so that's the total amount that we received. And the outside represents the multitude of grants that we received under each act. So in total, we've gotten 25 different grants related to recovering from the pandemic. The first act, I'm going to start at the kind of off center, so the bottom left-hand corner, the big, it looks blue on that screen, but purple up here. So that's interesting. So the CARES Act, we got 7.3 million. And all of that is spent except for one little grant we just got at the beginning of this year that we were actually surprised that we received. It's related to Medicaid, and we had applied for it and received notice that we received that one. So that's the only thing left in that. We move in up around the corner. We've got the SRSA, so that's what came out in December of 2020. And we've spent the majority of that one. And so the majority of what we have left is the remaining graph, which are the ARPA grants. The spending plan that we have to publish on the website relates to the top right-hand corner, the ESER 3. So that's what, I can't even read my writing, $9.76 million. So that's what we're looking at. So I think it's also good to see kind of what have we spent. I know Kent Dickey gave a presentation to the House Appropriations Committee that showed the Virginia Department of Education all spending across the state, and he used these categories. These are categories that we have to select when we request reimbursement. So this is kind of in token with what he has done. So as of November 15th, I've got the 3 different acts up on the screen. Sorry, I'm waiting for Chuck. I know he won't like it if I'm walking around. So the first act for CARES, as I said, the 100,000 is the last amount that we have left. The SRSA, we've got 1.57 left, and then ARPA, the 10.4. One thing that I think is a really good takeaway from seeing how we've spent the money so far, you know, when CARES came about, we were really reacting to sanitizing, to social distancing, to seeing what we could do to provide distant learning for our students to try and continue with education in the environment we were forced to be in at that time, right? And so you're going to see the majority of our money is in the top 2 rows up there for those purposes. And then as we shift to the right, we're kind of shifting down the rows, and we're starting to put more money towards our student needs. So I think that's the big takeaway from this one. You can see exactly where we've spent the money. So what do we have left to spend? I met with the superintendent's cabinet Monday a week ago, Monday a week ago, I think, and with Dr. Nicely, and we did go ahead and take a look at kind of where our balances were sitting in some of these grants, and we shifted some money so that we could identify the proper amount of money to support Mr. Williams' programs that he just went over with you guys. So we're going to fund, out of the SRSA grant, we have set aside $614,625.18. And let me step back. So the way that this table is laid out, everything in yellow relates to unfinished learning, and they add across to the right. And then if you add up the unfinished learning and the other spending, that gives you your total on the far right column. So the unfinished learning for the summer of 2023, we just threw the whole pot of the high intensity in that grant. And then the Easter 2 will have a portion of the just-in-time tutoring, and then the Easter 3 extended learning program will be redirected towards this program, the just-in-time program. Moving to the right, we have in-house hourly remediation. And these are funds that we have set aside either for summer school or for other hourly positions for remediation, tutoring, and helping of our students or other support as needed. The third column are the additional staff that we have hired on a temporary basis to help with students. It includes adding 10 additional elementary teachers, which we were able to shift money around and keep them on board. Originally, we were going to have them just through this year. Well, now we can keep them. We've identified funds, and we're going to keep them through school year 24. So that'll be a real big help for elementary schools. We've got the math specialists and the reading math specialists at the elementaries, and then reading specialists at the middle schools. So 2 math specialists, 5 reading specialists. So they're going to really be a good thing. I think all of them we can continue through next school year as well. So that'll be a really good extra resource for our schools and our students. So out of this amount, you can see 25% of the unfinished spending will be for the tutoring. 17% will be other flexible hours that we have in place. And then 58% are going to be set aside between this year, the remaining year of this year and next year for contracted positions. So that'll leave, out of the total amount that we have, we're going to be putting 33% of our funds towards the unfinished learning. And some of these, we frankly just can't move towards unfinished learning. We'd love to, but when we have a grant that's directly for HVAC, we've got to spend it on HVAC. And so that takes, we got a $2.67 million grant just for HVAC, and so that's what that will have to stay being used for.
And the timeline for using? How long?
All of the Easter, the SURSA grants in September of 23. So that means we finish this fiscal year and can have 3 months of next fiscal year. And then ARPA will be September of 24. So that'll be this school year, next school year, and then 3 months of the following school year.
That's good.
Yeah, we've spent, we only have 41% of the total funds that we received left to spend. So I think we're on a good spend down progress. So the spending plan itself that we do need to republish and get all the stakeholder input is for the Easter 3 spending plan itself. The Easter 3 had 4 sections. So if you go to the website and you pull up the current plan, you will see the money laid out in 4 different areas. Now the money has shifted a little bit, so these don't tie exactly. We've got a final budget in here where we've already moved some of the funds around slightly. But these are the main areas, and you could see which ones have gone up and have gone down. In the first section, we've got prevention and mitigation strategies. So what's remaining and set aside is for the Fort Lewis HVAC and BAS upgrades. Air purifiers, we put those in all of the classrooms. We only have 14,000 left, and the plans are to just spend this down purchasing air filters. We've got some additional HVAC preventative maintenance set aside in here, which freed up money out of our CMP when we just planned this to begin with, and we've got some Hidden Valley Middle sinks, faucets, and fixtures in this grant. So then the next section is to address unfinished learning. And you can see we've got some special ed teachers, the special ed IAs, reading specialists, 10 elementary teachers for half of 2024, That wasn't the total amount we needed, but we were able to set aside an amount in a different grant for the remaining portion that we needed. Some additional special ed staffing, intervention and supplementary instruction, and ELL tutoring and parent support for communications. So that ends up being, we were required to have 20%, and we've got 27% set aside now.
Does that include salary and benefits?
The third pot of money that we had to allocate the ESER 3 into was the other uses of funds. And in this pot, the biggest amount up at the top is the teacher substitute position, where we put one substitute teacher in every school. And we were able to do this for the remaining part of last year when we put it in place, and then all of this year. And this amount will be fully spent by the end of the school year. We also have the full floating nurses. We have 3 of them for this school year, and that will be spent down by the end of the school year. The hard-to-fill special education stipend, this is again going towards these classes of employees that it is, we really, it's very costly to train, and when we train them, they leave us quickly, and so we're trying to do what our neighbors do and provide stipends to keep our special ed student teachers who are doing really great things for our students. So we do have the stipend in here for that retention. We'll pay half of it December 31st, and then half of it at the end of the school year. And then that will be fully paid out. And then we have 2 IT technicians that allowed us to get a technician at every school, middle and high school, that was just really helpful with all the additional computer technology that we have out there. And then a little bit for water bottle refill stations, which I know maintenance is working on that as we speak. The last area for the ESER, the 4th group, we had is addressing students' academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs. So we do have our life counselors and behavior coaches and a part-time guidance counselor in here. And that will get us through this year and next school year. So that's a lot of information, but our next steps will be over the next week and a half, getting the stakeholder input, having the survey open up, holding the public hearing, and then I will present to you the updated spending plan. And when I present that to you, it has to be in the format that I give it to you. I can't take different pieces out of it, prescribed by the VDOE. That's it.
Thank you, Sue.
Any questions for Ms. Peterson? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to take a quick little break. We've had a legal issue come up and need to go into closed session for 10 or 15 minutes, Ken, probably. So we're going to take a quick little break. Mr. Ray, would you please read us into closed?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2.37A7 of the Code of Virginia.
Second?
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Ms. Petroni?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Ma'am.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ward?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, I move that Roanoke County School Board come out of a closed session for the following: for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to the actual and probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A of the 7 Code of Virginia. And I move to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters were lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, considered in the meeting by the school board.
Second?
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Mr. Chani?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gray?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linder?
Yes, ma'am. All right, moving on with our agenda. 2.06, cell phone policy update. National Day of Unplugging, March 3rd and 4th. Dr. Stigall.
Yes, okay, good evening. So you have a copy in front of you. So these are this is an edited version. So the request was made that we take a look at the cell phone policy. So we did that here, the staff reviewed it and made a couple recommended changes and wanted to review those and then see if you had any other suggestions for change. So you can see in this edited version, we struck out one sentence there. Basically, the universal remote at the very big top, you see that's marked out in PDA. That's just cleaning up languages, that's old terminology. And then in the second paragraph, this pertains to elementary and middle school. Students may possess cell phones. We struck out PDA and other communication devices on school property, including school buses, provided that the device must be off and out of sight. That's our current policy. None of that has changed. The one thing that we did strike out is unless being used by approved part of the instructional process. I did reach out and called all of the middle school principals, and most of them were shared with me there was very little use of cell phones for instruction. So we are making the recommendation that we take that out just to make sure the policy is solid for our elementary and middle school kids. And then the next paragraph, we're talking about our high school students. Of course, it's the same statement. They're allowed to possess cell phones on school property, including school buses. This is where we change language a little bit. Provided that it must be off during class times, that's the same. We've added an out of sight because that's the problem that we're having with it being a distraction in their laps, on the desk, different things like that. So we would like to make that recommendation. And then the next sentence is an added sentence. Mobile devices can only be used for learning activities under the direct supervision of a teacher. All other use is prohibited during class time. So we took out that next sentence. And then this has always been practiced at the high school level. Students may use a cell phone before and after school, during lunches, and in the hallways between classes, provided that the phone remains in silent and does not become a disruption. So that stayed in there. That's current practice. And then the next statement, we struck that statement because it really doesn't belong in this policy. And then if you look at of course, cell phones aren't allowed in restrooms. That's been in there. This last one we added because we've been having this, this has been a problem more frequently. Students may not use any device to photograph, video record, or audio record any student, employee, or member of the public on school grounds unless they have permission from both the persons being photographed or recorded and a school official. So we would like to recommend those changes and see if there are any other suggested changes to discuss.
Have we run this by legal counsel?
Yeah.
Not yet, but we really aren't changing much. Are you talking about that last statement?
Last paragraph.
Yeah.
That is actually already in one of our policies that students are not allowed to record on school property.
We can definitely review the
But we
language
can review
with them,
it.
for sure.
And this is verbal only? Verbal or written?
Verbal,
Permission.
yes, verbal. Here's what will happen at secondary. Sometimes classes will interview students and they'll use their phone and that's a class, that would be approved by a school official. So students at the high school level do use their phones to do those kinds of things. What we're trying to prevent, students who are disciplined will be called into the office by a principal and they'll pull out their cell phone and record that conversation.
What happens if they're on school property and they're after hours and they're like the cheerleading team and they want to take videos of that?
They can do that.
But they have to ask.
This is only during school hours.
Oh, only during school hours, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Well, still, if
Yeah.
if your fellow cheerleaders and the coach say that's okay, then you
Yeah.
check those boxes off.
Yeah, yeah.
Ms. Fashani?
So mobile devices can only be used for learning activities under the direct supervision of a teacher. How often do you think that we're using mobile devices during learning activities?
At the high school level?
I mean, they have their
A lot.
laptops.
They do it. There's lots of activities. So for example, digital photography, they go out around the building, outside the building,
Okay.
take pictures, bring them back in, upload them. There's interviews, opportunities where they'll have go interview your neighbor and come back and upload the video for a presentation. They do it quite frequently at the high school. QR codes for scavenger hunts, different things like that.
Our concern is the language, and I think it's probably a concern that all of you share, and that is, the attempt here is to clarify and make sure that the teachers have the support and the legs to stand on what they feel like they need to say, look, we're not having them. So we actually debated, whether or not to even include that, because we want to empower the teachers to say, no, look, it's school board policy, the default is you have these things turned off and out of sight during class, right? So we don't want to reopen that door to the confusion, but also recognizing that, especially at the high school level, there is so, I mean, we're open to suggestions and sort of
Yeah.
we'll do what the board wants
And
to
that
do,
was
but.
exactly my concern too. So are you reopening that door? The teacher told me so. It'd be nice to make the language a little bit clearer, I think, there. I don't know if that's possible. Do other districts, have they looked at disciplinary actions being included in their policies?
You wanna address that?
We looked at multiple policies, and some people do address those in the policy. However, we don't do that in any of our policies because we have the code of conduct, and all of our disciplinary infractions are in the code of conduct. And there's actually a chart that we follow of leveling of suspensions in school detention and how much you can give for each offense. So we quit putting that in our policies a while back because you don't want to have to refer the policy for discipline. There's one place you go to refer to discipline.
And do you think the code of conduct is severe enough that this would deter students not to use their cell phones during class?
Okay, let me address that. So, yes, I think so. Here's how basically that works. You think about like dress code. A student they're wearing their hat. What happens? Student coming down the hallway with their hat on, their principal sees it. I mean, I see them do this all the time. You don't immediately say, okay, look, you got to go right to school detention for your hat. You tell them, hey, Johnny, don't forget to take your hat off, and they comply. Now, if they don't comply, right, or if the second day it's constant thing, that becomes something else. It becomes insubordination, right? And so I think it's the same kind of thing with this. I mean, one violation in a classroom situation, we would expect a teacher to say, hey, Johnny, put your phone away, right? Turn it off. Now, if it becomes habitual and they refuse to do it, that rises to a different level, if that makes sense.
And within the code of conduct, you can handle that?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. And then in terms, I have seen other policies that include staff. Did you see any of those?
No, I
Staff,
didn't.
okay. Yeah,
No. That would be difficult for us.
I think it's difficult.
Since
Yeah.
we've added the Raptor app and have encouraged the
Yeah,
use of their
I
cell
thought that was a
phones.
little extreme, to be honest with you, but you could suggest that staff, teachers, when it's not appropriate, when they're not teaching, they should not be on their, it is expected that they would not be on their phones either.
Oh, absolutely. If
Yeah,
that became
so-
a problem in a school and the principal had to address that, then they absolutely have the legs to do that. Like you're, constantly texting with whomever instead of teaching.
Right.
And that's something that definitely.
Yeah, so would you want to include something in there, or would prefer not to?
I don't think it belongs here. I think that
Okay.
belongs more in
Code of conduct.
our policy 5.55 comes to mind, which is standards of conduct for
For
teachers,
teachers.
which I think.
I think you're correct.
Yeah, there's enough legs in there to say, look, that's not appropriate.
Okay,
And we have to address that.
if it occurs. All right.
Mr. Ray?
I know this is probably an off the wall, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. How many times do you turn yours off and on? Never. And we're asking them to turn it off and on, how many times a day?
4,
4.
just for class.
Yeah. And we say, okay, off, on. Does that put us at a liability, you know, and they say, oh, my phone's broke because it's been turning on and off so many times?
Well, I think a lot of them, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. We say off, but that could be airplane mode, that could be silent.
That's
Most-
what I thought when you were saying off.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
It's setting that
something.
expectation, I
Just
think. I
so-
think your question's a good one. Because nobody's gonna go around checking the backpack and say, okay, make sure, show me that it's off, right?
Right.
But if it's going off, if it's ringing, then obviously it's not, and you're going to address it,
So
so.
if it's silent, and it's
Right.
airplane mode, they're.
Right.
two different-
I would liken it to this, I know if I've got mine in my pocket, even though I've got in silent mode, and I'm in a place where, I can't be answering my phone right now, even getting a text message, even on vibrate, I'm still feeling it. I'm still distracted by, you know what I'm saying? So if they're hearing that thing go off, even like a buzz, I think our default would want to be that it's expected to be off. Again, we're not going to police it to say, unless it becomes a problem. That'd be my suggestion.
The students have smartwatches now?
Yes.
They do.
That's in there as
They
a
still have
wearable. And other communication devices on school
that?
property.
Yeah,
Right.
so you're gonna reiterate that, hey, it's also these things.
That's right.
Well, once you put your phone in airplane mode, you don't get alerts on your wearable, right? Okay.
Okay. We could even put that language in there. 3 years from now, is that still a term? I don't know, but we could put it in there if that means something. to
Who would have
anybody.
thought PDAs would be out of date?
Exactly.
No,
I
right.
thought that was something else,
I know.
like the SEC.
Police department?
Mike. I think it's a good policy, Rhonda. Thank you for taking a look at it. It's something that I've been concerned about for a while. I think any policy is only as good as the enforcement that comes with it. So hopefully just updating it and making the language a little bit clearer, maybe talking to staff, letting them know that this is what we like to see happen. I think teachers are really struggling with students on their devices. I think technology has really given us lots of benefits. However, there are some real drawbacks, and one of them is it's like an appendage, and they don't even realize they're touching it. They don't even realize it. So to take that burden away from the teacher, to have to interrupt class time, to discipline a child over and over again, and not have to put their hand out and say, "Give me your phone," really takes that burden away from them, which I think would be well supported.
We would probably have less tutoring needs if they weren't distracted by their cell phone all the time.
Probably right.
And I would suggest, that high school thing, I was thinking about it, it says under the supervision of a teacher, we could strengthen that maybe by saying, with the permission of the teacher, right? Make it
Yeah.
clear that they have to give permission.
Because direct supervision can, to your point, if they're going around filming down the hall or wherever else they're doing a project, they're not directly supervised at that level and in line of sight, so.
I do think, as a board, I think we discussed this probably a couple meetings ago, but I think this, by strengthening the policy, bringing it up, it also gives us the avenue to sort of do a reset in our communication to principal, to teachers. It gives teachers permission to say, look, guys, school board revised their policy, we can't do this anymore, you've got to have it out of sight, and I think we'll see better enforcement.
Yeah. And for the teachers to know that they're supported by their principals.
Yes.
And the second half of your presentation?
Yeah, I'll go unless you want to. So March 3rd and 4th, I think Ms. Facciani brought to our attention that it's a national day of unplugging, I forget the exact term. Into the, as far as like getting people to do that, the idea would be, probably like peer influence is important. I think SAC, we went to them, that's probably the wrong vehicle. My suggestion would be if the board, again, maybe even in conjunction with this updated policy, would like to sort of make a statement and recognize that. You could, this is a suggestion, maybe entertain doing a resolution, recognizing that day, encouraging that's done, that be done. we can take this to the principals, they can enlist it, or, enlist the help and support of their prevention clubs and other people to make that happen. I think we probably don't want to get into a battle kind of day, but definitely promote it, and encourage people to observe it. I think that'd be a good thing. And again, if we can do this in conjunction with the updated policy, that gives us 2 ways to bring attention to it.
And you might be able to encourage some type of friendly competition. So
Yeah,
you
the
could have
schools are great.
principals that offer how many pledges per school, because it's kind of a turnkey program. Kids will hold up signs that say, I'm unplugging because whatever.
And they kind of pledge ahead of time that they're going to.
Pledge, and if you have so many pledges and how many people actually stick through it, I mean, someone might just pledge for 2 hours and might not be able to make it the whole 2 hours. So, and I think I said to somebody recently, failure is good. And if these kids actually pledge and they fail, that's bringing awareness. Hey, hold on a second, I really thought I could go for 2 hours without my cell phone. So I think it's good also for the entire family. Families often at dinner tables, they all have their cell phones out. Can you sit down to a meal without your being on your device? And it just brings a general sense of awareness about mental health and mindfulness.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Stegall.
All right, thank you.
Item number 2.07, mowing of grounds. Mr. Kegels. We've got him for the duration here. Shouldn't take too long.
Good evening, everybody. In terms of the mowing, I think most of you are aware that we were informed 6 weeks ago or so that Parks and Rec was no longer going to be mowing school facilities as of, I think, January 19th is their sort of the termination date for the contract. So we have published an IFB for mowing services for next year that closes on December the 8th. The only thing of note I think you might be interested in is that we regionalized that to allow smaller mowing companies to do it, so they can either bid on the entire contract or they can bid on specific regions of the county. And there has been quite a bit of interest in the contract, so we won't actually have that information until after it closes on December the 8th. Any questions about the mowing IFB?
So this is 2 days from now.
Yes, sir.
Do we require background checks for any of the workers on our, because I know they do that during school.
Sealed bids.
Yeah, I think that's actually in the IFB that if you're going to bid on it, all your employees have to have the background check.
Okay.
We'll verify that, but I'm fairly certain it's in there. We actually modeled it on the one that the county used for mowing their parks.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great because they mow during the week, obviously, when
sure.
kids are in session, and
Yep.
we don't want a situation where we have a
Yeah, I'll
convicted
verify.
felon or something.
So Kermit, what are we doing? Is it 750,000? What am I thinking about, how much we paid?
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec now?
I think it's 375,000.
What was I getting, 750? 375?
I think so. I don't know if Susan could pull that up for us, but I
In your
believe
thought
that's.
process,
Sir?
could be better, more?
Well, I don't know. We're going to find out here in a couple of days when we can look at all the bids. But in talking to the Parks and Rec guys, when this came about, they actually thought maybe we could get a better deal with some private companies. So we'll see.
Were they
We'll know
struggling
about
to,
it next meeting.
were they struggling to staff their own?
Yes.
I figured that's what
Yes.
it was.
Yep. And we looked at, could we do that ourselves and what would we be able to pay for that kind of budget? But the reason we didn't continue down that road was that exact reason. We didn't think we could hire people and keep them, so.
Any questions? All right, nice and quick. 2.08, Vinton and North County bus lots.
So Dr. Nicely had asked us to take a look at these lots to see what we could do with them. And then subsequent to that, there was an email from one of the bus drivers to Mr. Greenway to talk about the condition of the lots. And they are in very rough shape, both the one at Northside and the one over in Benton, which this is the picture of the Benton lot here. In a second, Chuck will pull up some photos to kind of show you the condition of the lots. So could we go back to that one for just a second, the one that you had up, because I just want everybody to see what we were talking about in terms of paving it. So the north side lot is a little bit easier because it's all inside the fence. We would be, if we were to pave them, we would be paving the area just inside the fence. This one is a little bit different because we own the entire yellow shaded area there. So we own this part of the road that goes down to the fuel pumps, which is that sort of square building on the left if you were going out, plus the little paved area behind the building. We own the building, it's basically abandoned, and then we own the parking lot up behind it. So we'd be paving all of that area if we did the Benton lot. And Chuck, if you'll just kind of show us the condition of.
Just real quickly, just for the benefit of everybody, because everybody may not know, this is on the property, the building beside the large building that's the old William Byrd High School. So that was, built back in the 30s, and then at some point it became William Byrd Junior High School, and then most recently it was Roanoke County Career Center, which housed most recently some middle school programs and so forth. So at one point, we closed that, so that's now apartments, that went to the county and then turned into apartments. So the part Mr. Kegels was showing was just, that's the remaining piece that we still own because that bus lot has been there the whole time, and so we still have that part. Just want to throw that in there for a little bit of history.
And so this is a mix of the pictures at both Northside and Benton. They're both in rough shape. The one in Benton's worse. That's Northside. Again at Northside. I believe we're still at Northside there. And so there's really not much left of the pavement that was there. I mean, we're down to the base in most of these cases, and the rest of it's crumbling. So it's not really a situation where we can fix it by going in and fixing potholes because the entire surface is coming apart. I think we should point out this is an infrastructure need, and these lots have been there a long time, and they're probably going to continue to be there for a long time. And it's not it's kind of not a glamorous thing, and it's kind of tucked away where people don't see it, and so we don't typically think of, oh, these are things that we have to maintain, but we definitely do. For one reason, it's not safe for our bus drivers when they park in those lots and then they, go to leave. There's potholes all over the place. There's crumbling pavement. There have been injuries over the years from drivers stepping off the bus and into a hole and that kind of thing. Paving them is going to be expensive. We are probably as a budget number looking at about $425,000 to pave both of those lots. That's to completely remove the existing surface, new base, and then new pavement. It is our recommendation that we consider paving those lots.
You can't resurface those.
Well, that would be resurfacing. I mean, that's in terms of.
I mean, over the spider type asphalt.
No, we talked to one of the paving contractors that gave us that kind of initial number, and the existing surface is in such poor condition they can't really pave over it. If they pave over top of it, it's just, you're going to get the cracks and things that are going to come back through there. So he used the term dead. That pavement is so old that it's dead. It no longer has any sort of pliability to it at all. That's why it crumbles into those little sections that you saw all over the place there. And so there's really not anything they can do with it other than remove it and then put down a whole new 3 inches of asphalt. Yep. Yeah.
What do you think the lifespan is something like that? I'm just looking at it from a standpoint, as many properties as we have, is this something that we should start budgeting for way in advance so we don't wind up in a situation again? Is it something we need to add to capital maintenance? I don't know what the the life expectancy of asphalt like that is, but having so many facilities, I mean, is it something that we need to look at, long-term, create a budget line for asphalt?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is yes, and there actually is some money already in the CMP for parking lot maintenance, but it's not enough. It's not enough to actually pave the lots, and I think the situation we're running into is that a lot of these things are sort of aging out at the same time. I was in the lot, since this has come up, I've been paying a little bit more attention to the condition of the parking lots, and a lot of the lots look sort of rough. Not as bad as the two bus lots, but there are several parking lots that are going to need paving in the near future.
I may need to look into that, Ken.
When I think of the amount of square footage that we have in parking lots, it is incredible.
Yep.
And we would certainly not allow that to happen in our teacher parking lot or our student parking lot. We shouldn't allow it to happen in our bus parking lot either.
And this is something that definitely should be, discussed further during budget time, to your point, Mr. Hudson. I mean, I kind of chuckle when you ask Mr. Kegels, do we need some more money? Because I know the $1 million that we get each year for CMP, which is supposed to be all that, capital maintenance pieces. I mean, I won't make you throw out a number, but
That's half of it right there.
Yeah, get your.
Yes, that's half of it
That's
right
half of
there.
it.
Just
Well,
paving
yeah,
those
and
two
just,
lots.
It's a
double and
drop in the
triple it
bucket.
at least, right?
Yeah.
To really take care of,
He said a couple meetings ago, triple it,
yeah, okay, you already said
and
that
he'd be
one.
happy.
Well, and one thing that folks don't think about, right? I mean, just think about how much effort we've had to and are continuing to put into just looking at our CIP when it comes to our schools, right? I mean, trying to, get Burton replaced, trying to get these 2 elementary schools replaced, as well as the other, 6 schools that were all built in the late 1960s and early 70s that need to be addressed. I mean, that does not include other facilities. I mean, go up to Salem and look at our transportation facility, and for example, I mean, just, there's other places, right, that aren't as visible, right, but still those needs, definitely creep up.
Todd, when do you expect that we could even start that process?
Well, it is weather dependent in terms of you have to do it above a certain temperature, and they actually close the asphalt plants down. But if you have a big enough job, they'll open them back up just for that job. But you have to have a warm day when you can do it. This particular, because of the cost of this, it would have to go out to IFB. That process takes, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks usually, and then they could start on it right away. I mean, they have availability right away. So we could do it in, probably this winter.
Would you get a
if
better
we have the
deal
money.
in the winter versus the summer when they're all out there asphalting?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The company that gave us this bid also is the one who did the one over at Northside for us at the tennis courts there. So they're usually pretty competitive. So the number is probably about what it is.
As far as rate, I don't know, success rate versus, I know they shut the plants down and they quit the asphalt. If they would open it up in the dead of winter and you get out there maybe a day that you could pave it, does it need to season better when it's warmer rather than?
I don't think so. I think it's a matter of really cooling it, but you do have to be able to get it down, get it placed, and get it compacted before it cools. And so that's why they won't do it. I don't know what the temperature range is, but in my conversations with them, they do have to pick days when it's above a certain temperature to be able to pave.
Yeah.
I guess.
We wouldn't want to put it down and come back up.
Oh,
That you
absolutely.
do it right.
And we do get a guarantee, with that.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
And then just the logistics of the buses, where are you putting them when you're doing?
Well, we
them?
haven't gotten that far yet because,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is
So
kind of
over the
first
summer
step.
might be a
Right.
lot easier.
But we would find a place. I mean, that wouldn't stop us from being able to get them paved. And it's actually fairly fast. They can probably do, the Benton lot could probably be done in less than a week, start to finish, if everything, if you had good weather and the temperatures were right. So it wouldn't be that we had to park them somewhere for a long time.
Okay.
In order to send out an invitation for bid, we don't need to allocate funds first, do we?
I don't know the answer to that.
Pardon me?
No, you can send out the invitation to bid or RFP or anything like that. You just don't have to award the contract. You can't award the contract.
And I will say, I've heard from some companies, the first thing they'll ask us is, do you have the money, before they're willing to go through the process to give us a bid, because it's a lot of work to come over, take all those measurements and, calculate all those prices for something that we don't even have the money set aside for. So, that's just something to consider.
I guess, our thought was, definitely need to bring this to y'all's attention, as a board in terms of a need. And, again, we're getting ready to head into budget season, and these are just, this is probably something that needs to be taken care of sooner than later, but I think we have other things we're also talking about, so we just definitely wanted to bring it to your attention.
Does this have to have a special grade with all the weight versus your normal driveway?
It is. There's a specific type of asphalt they use and a specific thickness that they use. I believe it's 3 inches.
So
for
weight of
this.
buses and a loaded bus or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
When they're parking on that lot, they're not loaded, though.
No, but they're plenty heavy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah,
they're
no
big
question.
vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, they're
but,
heavier than you'd want on your driveway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, driveways are, this is 3
Yeah.
inches of asphalt for
Yeah.
the bus
Okay.
lots.
All right, any other questions on that? 2.09 NHS Stadium Artificial Turf.
So as you guys know, we were asked to look at what it would take to put artificial turf in at Northside High School. We've met with 2 different vendors, and we actually have a meeting with a 3rd vendor tomorrow. This is, just in case you're interested, I did bring a sample of what the company we met with yesterday was providing. That doesn't have the infill in it, of course. That's the rubber and sand that goes in it once it's installed. But that does show the rubber pad that goes underneath it, and then the type of turf that they recommended. So there's obvious advantages to having artificial turf in place in terms of maintenance, long-term safety, durability, ability to play in all-weather conditions. We have it at every other high school. Northside's the only one that doesn't. It would be our recommendation that we consider installing artificial turf in the stadium at Northside High School.
Turf in the pad.
Yes, sir.
Pad, is the thickness the same?
So this is a little bit different product than what we have put in at our other schools. If you'll recall, we had a quote for the product that we put in at the other school from the same installer that put it in at our other schools. But it was considerably more expensive than what this company provided. And the difference in the product is that in the current stadiums, the grass is a little bit longer, the yarn is a little bit longer, about ½ an inch, and it has more infill in it. So it's got more of the pellets. That's where you get the sort of thickness that you need for the GMAX rating. GMAX is basically an impact standard that you have to meet. They take a weight, they drop it from a specified height, and then they measure the impact. And football fields have to have a certain GMAX rating to be safe. You like them brand new to start out at about 100, and then 175 is like considered a max. So in order to get that with the shorter nap, you put the rubber underneath instead of on top. So instead of putting the pellets in, you put the pad down, and that gives you the additional GMAX rating that you need. Now, I did speak with a school in Ohio that had installed this product, and they had nothing but good things to say about the company that installed it and about the product itself. So, and then I spent about half a day with the fellow who owns the company yesterday out at Northside taking measurements and doing some other things so that they could provide us with a bid.
You say that is shorter than the grass at Bird
Mhm.
and Glenver?
Yep,
Wow.
it's just a little bit shorter. It's about ½ an inch shorter.
So most of the pellets then, because it doesn't look like that's shorter, I mean, that looks long to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you go over to Bird, for instance, there's some of that turf that is underneath the stadium that's there for repairs, so it doesn't have the pellets in it. And it doesn't look very long because when it's on the field because it's full of rubber. So only just the tips of the blades stick up above the rubber. But if you see it like that without the infill in it, then it's much longer than you would think. I think that's 2 inches and Bird's is 2.5.
And this price is with the pad and everything?
That's, let's see, where did I put in there? That budget number is at 980 is our budget number, I think, for that, is with the pad, that's with a contingency and the logo in the middle of the field, which is what we have at the other schools.
In 10
And
years.
the machine? Sorry. And the.
He's pricing that for us, so at all the other schools, when we installed it, the company's included the brush that you need. It's a tow-behind machine that rotates and it brushes the pellets back into place. They actually wash out and they blow out as you use them, and you're supposed to not mow, but you're supposed to brush in a certain pattern to bring that rubber back to the center about every 30 days or so. And he is pricing that, but that's $10,000 at the most. So what we've got here is a budget number based on that initial quote would cover the machine.
And then lifespan is typical to the other 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years or so, and the pad is supposed to last through 2 or 3 cycles. So when it is time to replace it, you just kind of pull the carpet up and put another one down, just keep the pad in place.
So your replacement cost is how much then every 10 years?
I don't know the answer to
Okay.
that. I didn't ask that
Yeah,
question,
okay.
but we can find out.
Any other questions?
And this would do football, just to be clear for people in the public to understand, it's not just football. So we have football, we have soccer, band, and then we would allow rec to come in and play on these fields as well. I think they already do. Correct. Do they now?
They do play some on that field, I think.
This would probably open it up to even more.
Yeah, I don't think much. I think
Right.
they
I think it
allow
was just
very
two-
limited
right.
use on the Bermuda
They
for
do,
rec. Well, like over at Bird now, they play there pretty much every Saturday because of the artificial
That
turf.
would allow this where we wouldn't,
And Bogle is used too. Yep.
so that way we wouldn't have to worry about damage to the field. We'd allow people from the public to be able to play a lot more frequent.
That's
And I
right,
imagine-
and that's the big advantage to the turf is just being able to use it constantly over the grass is a great surface when it's, when it's in good shape and you only have to play on it a little bit, but that's not the way we use our fields. We use them all the time, so.
And I remember, if I remember correctly, it was about 30 grand a year just to maintain the Bermuda.
Yeah, I think I actually calculated that out and had that in there. It's about, for what we're paying at Northside, it runs about $40,000 a year. Because we pay a commercial company to mow it 3 times a year, plus we overseed it with rye every year and then spray that out in the spring to, try to get it to be green. That's the other thing about, at this stadium. It's dormant when we're playing on it. The Bermuda is dormant most of the way through soccer season and even part of the way through football season, so. Yeah, it's expensive to maintain. Now, I don't think there's an actual offset, like a payback. I don't think you ever actually reach that point,
No.
but there is some for sure. And the big thing, I think, is when you see the coaches out there on a Thursday night, when everybody else has gone home and they're out there lining the fields and mixing the paint, which is a big job. I mean, if you've never done it on a football field, it's a big job. And when you see those guys out there doing it, it's like, yeah,
Well, and being
there's so
able to
many
practice in
reasons.
the rain and not worrying about tearing the
That's right.
field up, and
That's right.
there's a lot of advantages. But I like the fact that it affects more than just one sport.
Yep.
You're going to be able to help the band, you're going to be able to help soccer and all these other sports, be able to play more frequently on the field.
That's right.
Lacrosse.
Middle schools, the whole thing.
But it's been a pretty steady price over, I remember when we first put it in Bogle, it was pretty much like this. Is there something about this price that's different?
I wish I could answer that question because when I saw the initial 1.5 million price that we were quoted from the company who put in all of our other fields, it's concerning when somebody comes in and says, well, we can do it for this much less. Now, if it's 10%, well, that's one thing, but when it's, close to, he's quoting us 60% of what the other, that's a little bit concerning, but I was able to spend quite a bit of time with these guys yesterday and look at all the products they're offering and talk to him about how they compare to the other products that we put down. And I would say, and this school in Ohio, and just visually, if you take that out there and compare it to the stuff at Bird that doesn't have the infill in it, that actually seems like a much better product. It's much
Oh,
denser. There
It's a
are
good thing
more-
Tim is not here.
Yeah.
It is a good thing.
What about a timeline of
Sorry, Tim.
installation if we were to approve
Just gonna
something like
ask.
Well, we had that discussion at length yesterday with the folks out at Northside, and 60 days if everything goes exactly right. If you have good weather and everything goes exactly right, 60 days. But the contracts are usually written as 120 days. So realistically, by the time this went to IFB and contracts were awarded and they ordered materials and all of that, you could be looking at the entire soccer season of not having access to the stadium. Now, what they said was that they were willing to kind of take that on the chin and work it out so that they could get the turf installed. So, yeah, there would be some sacrifice to get it in. If you wanted it in, now, there'd be some sacrifice, but it could go up to 4 months depending on.
So it's probably something we need to, if we're gonna do it, we need to act on it quicker than later, sooner than later.
Yeah, because if we don't, then you're starting to run into football season. If we try to do it during the, wait till after soccer, and then, of course, you're at the mercy of the weather and that sort of thing, and.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know who was contracted out to maintain the Bermuda. It really was less than what we were hoping for. Did we pay out on that contract? Get a discount for anything because it didn't really come out. It looks terrible, right? That's why we're here.
Well, with the exception of one kind of mistake that I think some of the folks they sent out there made with cutting it too short, that browned it up. Actually, it looked pretty good most of the rest of the summer.
Really?
It looked actually really good most of the rest of the summer. Now, I didn't see it after the football team had played on it. But of course, it goes dormant during football season, and then all the Bermuda fields look bad after that because the grass isn't actively growing. So I actually don't think that I would characterize.
Okay.
What they had done is unsatisfactory. There were some issues here or there, but overall, I think they actually did
So it
okay.
was. So we were there when in the fall, looking at it, right, David? It looked so bad. Is that in the fall?
I think that was
Was it
before football season.
Before football?
Because
So
the
it was,
middle of
oh,
it
it was
was all
hot. Yeah, it was
torn off.
August.
Yeah, it
So
was-
August. So it hadn't.
It was probably around July.
So it typically looks rough. July,
In
August.
July is when it's really starting to,
looked
Bermuda is
terrible.
really starting to grow.
It looked
It's starting to
terrible.
look good.
I was there. You were there. We could see the lines down the
So,
field. I'm just surprised.
I think that's when they had cut it too short. 'Cause
Okay, that
there
was
were those
that-
brown streaks that
Right,
were all
yeah.
the way down and were about that
Okay.
wide. Yeah. they
So
had-
that corrected itself.
It did after a period of time. That is the great thing about Bermuda. It grows in and covers for itself once it recovers, but.
And we maintain this ourselves with the machine that we would purchase. And you said it only about 4 times a year or something like that. How many times?
He said every 30 days. I think Field Turf, when they installed it, it's, every couple of weeks, depending on how many times you play on it. You don't have to do it every time you play on it, but you want to do it, at least every couple of weeks.
Okay.
By Field Turf's schedule, this company was every 30 days is what they suggested.
But you don't have to add any rubber pellets.
Not on a regular basis. Now, rain actually carries those pellets out. If it rains hard, the rubber will actually wash out a little bit, and over a period of time, it is suggested that you add some pellets, and they typically leave you these giant bags of pellets so that you can do that as needed. If you get a thin area in the field, you can come back and add it, but typically you don't have to. If you're brushing it regularly and moving it where it's supposed to, you don't have to add it.
You'll get a third quote or a third
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yep.
And these are, in terms of process, these are estimates, but then you'd have to, do you go back out with an IFB though, or not?
Yeah, we would have to because over 50,000, you can't just do 3 quotes. It has to go to IFB.
So you're just kind of getting some estimates right now.
Yeah, we got the estimates, and then we'll put it out for IFB, and of course, anybody could bid, but all of the companies that give us bids will be specifically invited then to bid. And they're all aware of that they'd have to do the IFB.
Gotcha.
Sounds good.
So will we want to vote on this next Thursday? To allocate those funds? Is that this might be one of those projects where they want to make sure although it may not be that expensive to put the bid in, I guess. But I
Oh,
think
yeah. Well, I mean, like in this case, they had to fly in, they had to come and actually take measurements of the field. It's not it's a big job, so. But that would be my suggestion, is that if we're going to take it up, that we do it Thursday, because we need to get started. If you're going to want it done now, we need to get started.
And Just to be clear.
Everybody's looking at Susan.
Well, just to be clear, regardless of what you, if you do it, you know, we've had too many of these projects, right? I mean, there's no expectation to be done before soccer season.
Oh, that's
Does
right.
everybody know that?
And we can work something out with, where they'll be able to. put it.
Absolutely. Just want to say that out loud so that.
Right. No guarantees.
Right.
Like you said, I think in the long run, it would pay off for them.
Sure.
Yes. Any other questions?
Nobody else, Susan?
Susan, where are we going to come up with that?
You have 2.9 million in major capital reserves, and that's where we have to take it from. Although we'll add a little quid pro quo, I was gonna put all of that in CIP for BCAT.
Oh,
Right.
I'm glad I didn't do that yet.
Okay.
we better hope that what are we even meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
That we hear some good news.
Yes.
The 20%.
Too bad Tim's not here again.
That's not gonna happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will make that an action item on next Thursday's meeting. Please. Item 2.10, permission to surplus vehicles and miscellaneous items.
Obviously, we have a bunch of equipment. A lot of it is food service equipment, and then other miscellaneous equipment, and 5 vehicles that we'd like to surplus. All of that is available to you in board docs, the entire list, including the vehicle information. Those are mostly vehicles from the 90s that are well past their useful life. Is there anybody who needs me to read that entire list of 60 items?
No.
Is the station wagon on there?
No, the station
The
wagon.
station wagon is actually not on there
Okay,
yet.
good. Good. All right, that's all I need.
Institution.
But I want the station wagon to be on there very soon.
I'm gonna drive that to Richmond in January.
I'm sorry, I'm regress here, but I just want to make sure that we're voting on Thursday for the football field turf only.
Correct.
It doesn't have this baseball stuff in here.
That 975 or?
No, it was only the.
I just wanna make
I
sure
think
that
that
was
was
in there.
another quarter.
No, that was only included because when they
Or did
sent
it
that
all?
file to
That's what I
us,
was
it
gonna
included football
say,
and
is I
baseball.
don't think we can
but,
afford that.
That wasn't ever discussed as part of the project. He just included it so we would know what it would cost to do a baseball field if we chose to do that in the future.
No,
No.
you're not gonna start doing all of them, and that's not worth, I mean, in my opinion.
It would be nice to get a price for him to do all 5.
Yeah, that's what it's
But
at. It's
We've got
quarter-
so many other
quarter of a
things to
million
do.
dollars.
Really,
So, you know, you
I-
got pretty, million and a
don't go
quarter.
down that road. We got BCAT, we got a lot of other stuff.
I don't think,
I don't think so.
take the field turf on the football field.
Yeah,
that'll do
that'll
it.
be a win for you.
Yeah, I think something you can look at later on.
Any
Just
other
wanna make
questions
sure
on
we wouldn't
210?
Bring that to my
No,
son.
no, sir, we weren't
Okay.
talking about the baseball fields at this point.
Any
All
other?
right. Cool.
on
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's all right.
interrupt, but,
2.11, Town of Vinton easement at W.E. Gundiff.
So the town of Vinton requested these easements. It's hard to see there, but the little yellow box on both sides of the road, right there where Chuck had the pointer. There's the green box, and inside that, there's an orange box and a yellow box. The yellow boxes on our side of the road, that's W.E. Gundiff up at the top, is where this easement would be located. They're putting in a crosswalk right there and a median, and it would be our recommendation that we approve the request for easement. So the yellow one is the permanent, the orange is the temporary one for construction.
It's not gonna affect us.
Really doesn't impact us at all. It's down at the road, the school's way up the driveway. It really shouldn't have any impact on the school or its operations whatsoever, except it will eventually provide a way to cross the road there.
You don't have that on
Fine with me.
for action?
Yeah, that's the consent agenda item.
Yes, sir.
No children walk across that crosswalk to get to school, do they?
No, and in fact, we were discussing that today. Of course, that's a this isn't our thing. This is the town of Benton requesting to do this. I've actually never seen anybody cross the road right there, so I'm not sure why that's going there. And my kids went to school here, and so I was there every day for,
Can it slow
whatever.
down the traffic? Will they have something that would slow it down?
Well, they'll have lights.
That's right.
Right there, there's little yellow dots on both sides, right there in the easement. That's what the easement's for, is the flashing lights that will go right there. Now,
So
it's
that may
possible
help
this is
us.
related to the Greenway, because the Greenway ends just right down the sidewalk here. So it's
That's right.
possible that's a way to continue along the Greenway. I don't know. They didn't tell us why. They just requested the easement, said they were putting in the crosswalk. We actually could use one of those out at Cape Spring.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Don't tell me, don't talk.
Maybe the town of Benton has the money to do that, too.
Yeah.
Don't talk about that.
One clarification, the cell phone policy, do we want to put that on as an action item for next week or on consent?
What's that?
The cell phone policy change.
thought
I would
were
like you to
still
run that past legal.
Making some
Sure.
changes on
So
that.
so I would recommend do it as an action item.
That's fine.
That also brings, attention to it.
That's
I
fine.
agree.
Okay. Anything else? All right, our next meeting is next Thursday, the 15th. And until then, we're adjourned.